Shabbat Shalom and welcome back once again to the Virtual House Church. It's my blessing to be once again with you hosting Virtual House Church today. My name is Juan Carlos from the Light to the Nations channel. And as I have been telling you last week, we are broadcasting Virtual House Church simultaneously in the Rob Skiva channel and also in Light to the Nations channel. Be aware that, the chat is not working united. So if you are in the chat of Light to the Nations channel, you are not going to be able to see the chat in the Rob Skiva channel. So be aware of that. But, it's good to be here. It's good to be here celebrating and keeping Shabbat in honor of our Elohim. And what a better way to do it, gathering all of us together, at least virtually, we are in the four corners of the earth with the idea and the purpose and the desire of our heart just to study the word of Yahuwah, just to honor his name. And we do it because of one reason. We do it and we keep the covenant of Yahuwah. We do it and we keep the commandments of Yahuwah with the only reason because we love him. We keep his commandment because we love our Abba, our Father. So I welcome all of you that are joining us here in Virtual House Church. I see 55 of you connected in Rob Skiva channel and 44 of you connected in Light to the Nations channel. And this is an amazing blessing, that we have the opportunity and we are keeping this platform in order to have the chance to study together the word of Yahuwah. I know many of you that doesn't have the opportunity to meet brothers and sisters face to face or to have the opportunity to have a in-person gathering. And, having just the opportunity to connect through the chat, to connect through the comments, and for me, in this case, to have the opportunity to share what the Abba is guiding us and leading us to study every week is such a blessing. And, we are waiting, all of us, we're waiting for that time when we are going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth, and we are not going to be in the need of this platform and this technology because we are going to be in person celebrating the name of Yahuwah, praising his name, and also studying together by the hand of our King Yahushua HaMashiach. It's not going to be me, it's not going to be anybody else that is going to give us the word of Yahuwah. Is going to be our King directly, the one guiding us in the truth of the way of Yahuwah. And that's going to be an amazing time that, I do believe that you, as well as me, are waiting for that time to come. And there's no doubt in our heart that, we're getting closer and closer to that time. It's just a matter to see what's going on in the world. The birth pains are increasing in frequency, and also it's getting even more difficult every day. And that's just an evidence to all of us that we're getting closer and closer to that day. So, once again, welcome and thank you for joining us here in Virtual House Church. That we are, and the purpose is to get back to the basics, as you can see at the top of my head. So, as I always remind you, and I will do it once again, and let me share the screen with you now. Just give me a second. Virtual House Church is a ministry, is a project, it's a project that was started by our beloved brother Rob Skiva and his wife Sheila Skiva back on 2012, and has been an amazing blessing to all of us that we have been in touch with this project, with this ministry throughout the years. And the only fact that we are here continuing with Virtual House Church is because of the obedience on Rob's heart and in Sheila's heart that we are here and we are studying the word of Yahuwah, having this platform to join us every week virtually to study his word. And throughout the years, Rob had been collecting so much information that you can go directly to the virtualhousechurch.com website, and you will find so much information has been collected throughout the years in the Torah cycle that you can find over here, all the different cycles of the Torah. And you can click any of them. Let's go here to the week 19 of Exodus. And you will find that there is plenty of information has been collected throughout the years with all the broadcasts from previous years, the amazing Parsha in 60 seconds that, every time that we're doing the Torah cycles, we're using these videos that are a compilation, a summary, a great summary and a funny summary of the study of that week. But the most important items here, that you can find in this website, all the previous broadcasts starting from 2013 and onwards, including the ones that we managed to do with Rob in 2021 and also in 2022. And the good thing is that you can find so much information in this website, not only related to the Torah cycles. It's also, Rob was moved by Yahuwah to start collecting so much information, like, defending Messiah, coming out of Babylon, and the many other information that you can find over here, including what Jay has been doing for us. If you click in this week study here at the left column, you will find all the videos that we have been doing in this new cycle this year, that you can find those videos in the Light to the Nations channel. But you can go directly here to the website and to click here in the Joshua studies. So let's do it just for you to see. And you will be directed to this site where you will find all the cycle in the way that we version the book of Joshua, and the different video studies that we have been doing in the Light to the Nations channel, the Virtual House Church, for each one of the weeks. And we have been so blessed in everything that Yahuwah has been doing and giving us as food every week in Virtual House Church, that if you have missed all those studies, I will invite you to go ahead and take a look, because this cycle has been such a blessing for all of us that have been continuing doing Virtual House Church. And as I told you last week, if you thought that Virtual House Church stopped and didn't continue, it wasn't like that. We continue doing Virtual House Church, but we did it as you know, starting last year in the Light to the Nations channel, and we are so blessed now that we are able to bring Virtual House Church to his home here in Rob Skiba channel. So if you missed Virtual House Church, I will invite you to go ahead and take a look on those video studies, because as I told you, they have been such a blessing to all of us. What Yahuwah has been teaching us and revealing us to all of us that have been continuing having this gathering, this fellowship, virtual fellowship, has been such a blessing that Yahuwah put in our heart to continue with the reading his scripture, his word, not to resume the cycle and start the cycle again. Is just to continue with the remaining books. And as you saw in the screen, we have done already the book of Joshua. We have done already the book of Judges, and now we are in this amazing book of First Samuel. And as you can see in the screen, it's not this one, it's this one. We are studying the week 30 here, and it's in the book, and this is exactly what we are gonna study today. It's in the book of First Samuel, and we are going to study from chapter 21 until the end of chapter 22. And we have titled this week study, as you can see over there, everyone bitter in being gathered to him. And you can see also the name in Hebrew over there, just for a reference. And at the time that I was portioning this book, I was reading it and taking a look in the specific wording in each one of the versions. And there's so much foreshadow of Yahushua. There's so much beautiful statements in the word of Yahuwah that is touching our heart, like this one, and I will expand a little bit when we are going through the reading of this portion, and also what Yahuwah has prepared for us to share today. But this one particularly, the title, everyone bitter in being gathered to him, is so amazing, because it's a foreshadow, about whom I'm talking about. Is a foreshadow of our King Yahushua HaMashiach. So, I have some news for you. Jake Grant, our beloved brother, is going to join us today. So most probably he will jump in a few minutes from now. So as soon as he's coming back, I will bring him to the screen. So, with no more delays, And I see a lot of you connected in both channels, so that's an amazing blessing. I will invite you to close your eyes, to lift your hands to the heaven, and let's pray together to Abba before starting this study. Yahuwah Elohim, we want to give thanks to you in this day, in this new Shabbat, because you give us the opportunity to gather ourselves once again in obedience to your word, in obedience to your covenant, in obedience to your way of righteousness, keeping your Shabbat. That is so important because it's a sign between you and us, your people. And we do it with a humble heart, and we do it with all the desire of our heart in order to be obedient to you, in order to show you that we love you with all our being. And we ask you, Abba, in this time, that your presence can be with us. We are here, gathering together virtually in the four corners of the earth. And this is an amazing blessing because you have been awakening your people in these last days. And you are giving us the mean in order to be gathered together, in order to be echad through your ruach, in order to be one through your spirit. We thank you, Abba, because it's you who does everything in our lives. And we ask you, Abba, in this moment, that your presence be with us, that your ruach, your spirit, can guide us in this study. We ask you, Abba, that you can open our eyes, that you can open our understanding in order to get more knowledge and get more food directly from you. You are the one that is teaching us through Yahushua HaMashiach. We are just Talmidim, disciples of Mashiach. And our whole intention is to serve you. Our intention is to get knowledge from you. Our intention, Abba, is that you can guide us and you can teach us as the good Father you are. Teach our heart in order to be obedient to you, Abba. Teach our hearts in order to be humble to you, Yahuwah. That we can be obedient and we can be servant of yours in this time that there's so much need in the world. Give us the opportunity in order to be prepared ourselves in this Shabbat and through these studies in order to fulfill our purpose. That we can go to the world and we can bring the good news of your kingdom to the poor and to the needy. Abba, thank you for giving us the opportunity. And thank you for guiding us to study your word. I pray for anybody that is going through difficulties in this time, that you can touch them with your hand. Everybody that is going through sickness, that you can touch them and heal them. Touch the hearts, give us your heart, give us your mind, that we can follow the step of Mashiach. Thank you, Abba, for the opportunity you give us to be here. And thank you, Abba, for the opportunity you gave us through the offering of your Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, to be part of your kingdom, to be part of your people, Israel. Abba, we pray to you in this moment, in the awesome name of your Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen. Okay, so, as I told you, we are going to continue with this portion. So let me put the scripture in the screen. And, I got this question a few weeks ago about what is the software that I'm using to display the scripture here. So just for you to know, we are using Eastward. So I can suggest you just Google it and go Eastward, and you can have access to this software and different scriptures that, for study the word of Yahuwah is an amazing way to do it. And don't forget to donate to the person that created this software because it's blessing us in such an amazing way. So, as I told you, let me fix my screen over here. So we are going to study from chapter 21 and chapter 22. So let's read together, and if you have your scripture, your written word, take it and read along with me. So it says the following. And David came to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, And Ahimelech trembled when he met David and asked him, "Why are you alone and no one is with you?" Let's keep in mind what we have been studying so far. And last week, in the portion that we were studying, we saw how Saul was persecuting David because he was jealous that David had, the anointing from Yahuwah, and Yahuwah was with him instead of with David instead of being with him. Because we saw in the previous portion that Shaul was rejected because of he was disobedient to Yahuwah. Even though that he believed that he was rendering service to Elohim, he was not doing it. So because of all of this, he was persecuting David, and that's why David was running away from Shaul because he was he was afraid of his life. And we were studying and seeing all this situation with Jonathan, Yehonatan in Hebrew, and that's why David was running away, because he knew that Saul wanted to kill him. So that's the way where we stopped last week, and just to understand the context of what we are reading today. So we see here in the first verse that David came to Nob and came to the priest. And this is a really important point that I will spend a little bit in just a minute. So let's continue reading now that we have the context. And it says in the verse 2, "And David said to Ahimelech the priest, the sovereign has commanded me a word, and said to me, let no one know whatever of the word about which I send you, and which I have commanded you. And I have directed my young men to such and such a place. And now, what do you have on hand? Give 5 loaves into my hand, or whatever is found." And the priest answered David and said, "There is no ordinary bread on hand, but there is set apart bread, provided the young men have kept themselves from women." And David answered the priest and said to him, "Truly, women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are set apart, and it is an ordinary mission. And also it was set apart in the vessel today." Then the priest gave him set apart bread, for there was no bread there except the showbread, which had been taken from before Yahuwah, in order to put hot bread in on the day it is taken away. So, this is an amazing story, because our Mashiach was taking it as an example when he was debating with the Pharisees. But, the first point that I wanted to mention here is that is the attitude of David. He was going through tribulation. He was in distress. And the first thing he did, being persecuted, being in distress, being worried about his life, the first thing he did was to get closer to Yahuwah. He didn't go to anywhere else. He didn't go to anybody else. He went directly to the priest. He went directly to the house of Elohim. And this is so amazing, speaking a lot to all of us, that especially on these times with so much challenges, that sometimes we go and we try to get people to help us. Yesterday I had the opportunity to see a video about what's going on with the current generation. And the person that was speaking, he was saying that the current generation, when they are going through depression, and this is, I think this is the sickness of these times. Every time that they're going through depression, or every time that they are going through anxiety, the first thing that they go in order to calm them down is to take their mobile phones and to start looking into social networks. They're using technologies in the same way that, in the past, people were recurring to alcohol, drugs, and things like that. And, this person was talking about that what we should do instead of recurring and trusting in these kind of things, is that we need to learn that we need to trust in people. We should not go to social networks, and we should not go to technologies when we're going through difficulties. We should go to a real human being in order to receive some counsels, in order to get somebody to help us through the situation. And even though that I believe and I agree with some of the things that this person was speaking in the video, and for sure it's much better to record and to count in person real persons, that because they can be servants of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah use people in order to help us. And no matter that, is much better than relying on people than relying on technologies and the trap of social networks and the way that the system of the world has been working in these days. What this person was missing is exactly what we see David doing in this portion. The only fact that David decided to go to the priest, the only fact that David decided to go to the house of Elohim when he was so afraid of his life, is an example to all of us that if we're going through difficulties in our lives, sometimes the first thing we do is not to go to Yahuwah. The first thing we do is just to, get closer in our own understanding, our own mind, in our own rooms, in our own houses. And instead of going directly to Yahuwah Elohim, because he's the only one that he can help us and sustain us through those situations. So, I think just to start over, I think it is an amazing example for all of us. And especially, in the times, as I said, we are living and the times that are coming ahead, that we need to learn in these times, that we need to go and recur, we need to rely only in Yahuwah Elohim. Every time that we are so desperate because of any situation and any challenges that we are going through our lives. And the beauty of all of this is that the first thing that he was asking for food. And actually, let me continue reading, because it was not the only food that he was asking for. So let's continue reading. I will take from the point that I was speaking about. So we read until the verse 6. So let's continue in the verse 7. Now, one of the servants of Shaul was there that day, detained before Yahuwah, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Shaul. And David said to Ahimelech, "Is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the matter of the sovereign was urgent." And the priest said, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you struck in the valley of Elah, see, it is wrapped in a garment behind the shoulder garment. If you could take it, for there is none other except this one here." And David said, "There is none like it. Give it to me, and let me keep it over there." Because, as I said before, David is giving us the example that in the time of distress, he relied on Yahuwah. He went to the house of Elohim. He went to the servants of Elohim. And what he was looking for two things. The first thing he was looking for was for food. He was hungry. And he went to the house of Elohim looking for food. And the second thing he was looking for a sword. He was looking for a weapon. And when we understand all of this from a spiritual angle, it's giving us an amazing picture of what we need to look for every time that we are going through any situation. What we can find when we get closer to Yahuwah Elohim. At any time, we can find food and we can find sword. And there are a few passages that I want to share with you that are so amazing, are connected to all of this. So let's go to the book of John. just to understand what food is. And this is maybe easy for us to understand, but there are a few points that is important to remember all the time. So let's go to the book of John. I'm just taking a look in my notes. That's why I'm looking into that direction. So let's go to the chapter 4, and we are going to read from verse 32 to 34. So, Yahushua speaking, he says the following, and this is the story with the woman, from Samaria, and this is an amazing story to read all entirely, but we are gonna just pick those few verses just to make it more short and to the point. So, we remember that he sent his disciples to get food because they were not eating and they were traveling. And when the disciple came back, everything that we are going to read is what happened. So Yahushua, and he said, this is speaking about Yahushua, or Messiah, and he said to them, I have food to eat of which you do not know. Then the top ones, the disciples, said to each other, did anyone bring him food to eat? They were amazed because, Yahushua was sending them to buy food and to get food. So he is telling them, I already have food. That's why the question. And Yahushua said in the verse 34, Yahushua said to them, my food is to do the desire of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. And most probably you have been going through this experience that every time that our heart is fully filled with the presence of Yahuwah, every time that we are accomplishing the desire of Yahuwah and what he has been sending us to do, we forget about everything. We forget about the food. We forget that we can be hungry, and doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Only what Yahuwah has been sending us to do. So, and we see here in the words of Mashiach telling us exactly this: the food that we need is to do the desire of Yahuwah. The food we need is the Ruach of Yahuwah pushing us and igniting that fire within us to do the desire of Yahuwah. And the only fact that we see David going and getting closer in this portion to the house of Elohim, looking for food, is something, a connection that we should see it, that we should get closer to Yahuwah to get that food. We need to get closer, especially in these times, to Yahuwah Elohim to get that food that is going to ignite that fire to do his desire. Let's go to the chapter 6 of the same book. And we're going to read from verse 49. And it's so beautiful because, everything is pointing to Mashiach. Verse 49 to verse 51. And it says the following. We're going to read from verse 48. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread which comes down out of the heaven, so that anyone might eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down out of the heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. So, what is the food we need? In the words of Yahushua HaMashiach, is Him. He is the Word made flesh. And as we see, in the chapter 1 of the book, in the chapter 4 in the book of Luke, and when Yahushua was, during these 40 days in the wilderness, during these 40 days of fasting, when Satan was telling him in the verse 3, and the devil said to him, if you are the son of Elohim, command this stone to become bread. But Yahushua answered him, saying, it has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of Elohim. The written word of Elohim, He has given us, through the servants throughout history, is the word and the food we need. And when we understand that the written word of Yahuwah was made flesh and is Yahushua HaMashiach, and that's the food we need, And the only way that we are going to get everlasting life is with that food. It should complete the entire picture for all of us. That getting closer to Yahuwah, we are going to get from that food in the same way that David in this portion was doing it in order to, to contain the distress of his life. He was hungry, physically hungry, but he was in need of Elohim because of the distress that he was going through. We need to learn from that lesson that every time that we are in need, internal need, we need to get closer to Yahuwah, and we are going to get that food. The food that is the Word made flesh is Yahushua in us, in order to go through those situations, in order to have the strength and not to be hungry, because we are going to be able to do the desire of Elohim. And he was getting and asking also for the second thing. He was asking for a sword. And what was the sword he was getting? It was the giant killer, because it was the sword that David took in order to kill the giant. So, and this is, I think, when I was studying this portion earlier today, it was speaking a lot to me. And we were talking about this last week and the previous weeks as well, that we are in the spiritual battle. And the only way to win this battle every day is through the Ruach of Elohim, through the Spirit of Elohim. And for that we need a sword. And just understanding the parallels, because we know the origin of this spiritual being, the evil spirits, that their origin is on the Nephilim, the giants, is so important, the parallel, that even in the time of needs, in the time that he was looking for a sword, David got the same sword he used in order to kill the giant. And he found that sword in the house of Elohim. He found that sword in the custody of the servants of Elohim. And this is so important because Shaul was talking about that. Let's go and let's see in the book of Ephesians, because we know that the sword of Elohim the sword is the word of Elohim. So let's go to the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 17. This is something that we should be remembering all the time, what is written here. And actually, let me read from starting in the verse 14. And it says the following: Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance. Listen to this. And the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. And this is something that I didn't take too much into consideration in the past, because we all know that the sword is the word of Elohim as it is written here. But take a look, there is something more written here. It says, and the sword of the Spirit, the sword of the Ruach. In the spiritual battle, we need that sword in the same way that David was needing the sword. Is the sword of the Spirit, is the sword of the Ruach of Elohim. That's the word of Elohim, is the sword we need. And in order to get that sword, we need to get closer to Yahuwah. That's the sword that is the giant killers, is the killer of the enemies of Yahuwah, is the sword we need in order to fight the spiritual battle we are against the giants in their spiritual form. So, that's why what I see in this portion and what, I'm receiving from now, I'm sharing with you today, is that we need to get closer and closer to Yahuwah in order to get the two things that David was looking for. Even if we're in distress, we are going to be able to get food, and we are going to be able to get the spiritual sword in order to fight the battles where we are today. So, you know, just something that really interesting as a side note, that it is written going back to, to the book of Samuel, chapter 21, that the all this story happened in the city of Nob. I didn't have the time to take more information about the city of Nob, but what is interesting to note is that it seems that the service to Yahuwah was being performed in the city. The only fact that the showbread was being changed during this day when David appeared to the priest in the city is because they were performing this commandment in the city, and this commandment is part of the service that the priest had to do in the house of Elohim, in the Mishkan or in the temple, in the tabernacle or in the temple. So it seems to be that they were doing it in the city of Nob. Why they were not doing it in Shiloh, why they were not doing it in other place and they were doing it in Nob, there is something that it will require more study, but it seems that in one moment of the timeline of history, all this service moved from Shiloh to Nob, or maybe to somebody to other places. So I don't have the answer. That answer is not here in the portion as well, but it's interesting. When I was reading it, I just saw it, and it's interesting to maybe to study it with more details. So moving on, and I think the most important point in this portion is exactly about the master of the Shabbat. And that's the way that I call it. Why? Because when Yahushua was speaking about the Shabbat, he was using exactly this story in this book of First Samuel to refer and to talk about this important day. So before going there, I just want us to remember when we find the commandment of this of the showbread. So let's go to the book of Leviticus. This is VaiyitKabetzu in Hebrew, and we are going to read in the chapter 24. And let's read from verse 5 to verse 9. So this is Leviticus VaiyitKabetzu in Hebrew, chapter 24. We are going to read from verse 5, as you can see in the screen. Yes. To verse 9. So you can see in the verse 1, it says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, so this is a commandment from Yahuwah directly to his people Israel through the mouth of Moses. So it says, starting in the verse 5, and you shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it, 2/10 of an ephah in each cake. And you shall set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, on the clean table before Yahuwah. And you shall put clear frankincense on each row, and it shall be on the bread as a remembrance portion, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On every Shabbat, and listen to this, on every Shabbat he is to arrange it before Yahuwah continually from the children of Israel, an everlasting covenant. And it shall be for Aharon and his sons, and they shall eat it in the set apart place, because it is most set apart to him from the offerings of Yahuwah made by fire, an everlasting law. So this is, when we find in Torah the commandment about the showbread. And it is interesting to see, because this is exactly what Mashiach, as we are going to read in a minute, was referring to. Showbread was being changed Shabbat after Shabbat. They were taking the old showbread from the tabernacle or from the temple during Shabbat, and they were setting new showbread. And this is exactly so interesting, because this is exactly what we see in this story. This is, a confirmation that all this story that we read in the book of First Samuel of David and Ahimelech happened during a Shabbat. And who is talking about that is Yahushua HaMashiach. And before going there, just note what is written in the verse 9. This bread was set apart bread and was given to the priest, to Aaron and his sons, to nobody else. And this is exactly what Yahushua HaMashiach was talking about, and this is in the book of Matthew, Matityahu in Hebrew, book of Matthew, chapter 12. We are going to read from verse 1 to verse 8. So, that's amazing thing of studying the word of Yahuwah, when we are able to take a little here, a little there, and as soon as we are putting together this amazing puzzle, Yahuwah is removing any veil from in front of our eyes in order to see the truth of his word. So let's see, I have Jake over here, so let me bring Jake to the screen. Just give me a second. Good. Perfect. Okay, Jake, here you are. Shabbat Shalom, brother. Thank you for joining us.
Shabbat Shalom. One.
Yeah, good to have you here, brother. And I was I was so focused on sharing that this portion, I didn't notice that you were waiting here. So sorry for that.
No, keep on, keep on. That was great. I was really enjoying that.
Okay, so let me finish the thought, and then I will be so glad to hear what you can bring with your insights about this portion. So let me put the screen here with the scripture. So I was just going to read what is written in the book of Matthew, and it says the following, starting in verse 1. That time, Yahushua went through the grain fields on the Shabbat, and his told ones, his disciples, were hungry, and began to pluck heads of grain to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your told ones are doing what is not right to do on the Shabbat." But he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he went into the house of Elohim and ate the showbread, which was not right for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or did you not read in the Torah that on the Shabbat the priests in the set-apart place profane the Shabbat and are blameless? But I say to you that in this place there is one greater than the set-apart place. And if you had known what this means, I desire compassion and not offering, you would not have condemned the blameless, for the son of Adam is master of the Shabbat." I always, like the way that Yahushua was facing all these disputes with the Pharisees. Because, I imagine the whole situation of Yahushua giving all these arguments, and the Pharisees, having any argument to talk back, because he was bringing to life the word of Yahuwah, and giving the exact argument so nobody could confront him. And especially, in this point, it's something that, talking about the food and talking about the sword I was speaking before, is that Yahushua was talking about something that sometimes we need to remember, and we tend to forget about what is the most important things in Torah. And one of the most important things in Torah he mentioned is compassion. And he's talking about this exactly here, because what it happened is that the priest, they were appointed to eat this bread, nobody else. And but David was in distress; he was hungry, and we can see Ahimelech acting in compassion. That's why he was giving him bread, and that's why Yahushua was bringing this portion, this story, in front of the Pharisees, telling them that, one of the most important things in this way, in the way of Yahuwah, is compassion. And, he was speaking about that in an amazing way in the chapter 23 of the same book of Matthew. You know, I like this chapter, this entire chapter very much because he is revealing so much truth to all of us. But particularly in the verse 23, this is exactly what he was saying. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you tie the mint and the anise and the cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the Torah, the right ruling and the compassion and the belief. This need to have been done without neglecting the others. So you know what he's telling us, that we need to do everything, what he's commanding us and he's instructing us. You know, but he's also highlighting that there are priorities. He's highlighting that there are more important things in his way. And the most important things are here, the right ruling and the compassion and the belief. And you know, last week, Jake, I don't know if you managed to see that part of the broadcast. You know, what I was moved to talk about is about love at the end, about this amazing love between Jonathan and David. That is is a foreshadow of the love of Yahushua in the way that we need to walk this way, love to one another. And compassion is the other one. You know, even if we see that we need to be compassionate, we need to act in the same way that Yahuwah is acting in compassion, and the same way that Yahushua was acting in compassion. Just to close the thought, you know, where we see a few examples of that. Let's go to the book of Psalms. And, this is what is in the heart of Yahuwah. Let's go to the chapter 25, in the verse 6. Remember, of Yahuwah, your compassion and your loving commitment, for they are from everlasting. What is in the heart of Elohim is what is called in Hebrew Rahayim. Rahayim is being translated as compassion. You know, that's what is in the heart of Yahuwah. And we see exactly the same, you know, in our amazing Messiah. Let's go to the chapter 5 of the book of Matthew. Let's see what is written in the verse 7. He said, you know, blessed are the compassionate, because they shall obtain compassion. Blessed are the clean in heart, because they shall see Elohim. You know, this is exactly what he's looking for us, to act in the same way that this priest, Ahimelech, was acting in order to heal David. You know, and sometimes we are so entertained that we need to keep the commandments, and it's important. I'm not saying the opposite, that we are so focused and, you know, in our own understanding that we, in the same way that the Pharisees were missing the most important things in Torah, sometimes it's happening to all of us. That's why, you know, it's important to let the Ruach to remind us that love for one another, being compassionate in the same way that Yahuwah and Yahushua are, is what we need to do. And, you know, just to give another example of Yahushua HaMashiach, and this is so beautiful, it's in the chapter 9 of the book of Matthew, verse 11 to 13. It says, and when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his taught ones, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? And Yahushua, hearing this, said to them, those who are strong have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire compassion and not offering. For I did not come to call the righteous to repentance, but sinners. And you know, this is exactly what we are being called out of the world. You know, we are in this path that we need to learn the way of Yahuwah in order to be prepared to bring the good news. But, you know, it's not only that. We need to bring the good news to the world that is in darkness. And this is acting in compassion in the same way that the Ahimelech was acting, and in the same way that Yahushua is teaching us and instructing us. So, brother, you know, I would like to hear from you. So if you have any insight, please go ahead.
Yeah, you know, forgive me, I've been out of practice, everyone, for, you know, speaking on. So, you know, I might be jumbly as I kind of get back into the mode of, you know, speaking to a computer lens, right? But just to tack on to what you're saying before I talk about some things that stood out to me in the passages we read, you know, it's very significant that he points out the weightier matters and the importance of understanding how to set priorities in our walk, how to set priorities in our faith and our understanding of how to live out our faith in a practical way. And whenever he uses this example of David and David getting the showbread from the priest, it's a Torah principle that showbread, that set apart bread, is not to be eaten by anyone other than the priesthood, right? But there's a greater, a weightier matter of the Torah, and that is to preserve life, because Yah is a Yah of the living, right? Not of the dead. And
Mhm.
and at the same point, we see that there was still, in his approach to the priest, in his approach to ask for something that they needed, David, uh, he says that he even kept his men from the women, just as the Most High commanded the children of Israel before they went up to the mount. He said, "Stay, come not into your women for 3 days, so to set yourselves apart and prepare yourselves for the holy presence." And the 3 days reminded me of that 3 days leading up to the fire coming down on Mount Sinai, where he told them, "Hey,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
take that time apart from your wives." And we see that David here, at least for the in this circumstance, while he did ask for bread that was just regular bread, he was approaching the priest and having a request, and he was doing it in a proper way. He was trying to be lawful and trying to be set apart, even though they were in need. And there was still a procedure that he was going through there. But and then we see that the priest then gave him this bread to preserve their life, because they needed food to survive. And I just recently heard a brother named Eddie share a beautiful quote, and a kind of an understanding from the scripture, and it's how Moses Moses and the children of Israel had two different perspectives of Elohim. Moses knew the ways of Elohim. He knew the ways and the way that the Most High operated. And so he was able to remind Elohim of his character, remind him of who he was. And that's where you see circumstances of intercessing and him praying, "Hey, don't wipe out the people despite of their sin."
Oh, seems that we lost Jake.
They had kind of more of a um
Yeah, we,
am
we
I
lost
back?
we lost you for a few seconds. Yeah, you're back.
I'll love to get into why our internet signal is so bad and why I've not been able to join Virtual House Church here for the past month or so. But first, let's try to focus on this. But
Yeah,
please forgive me if my internet is cutting up.
don't
Am I
worry. Go
back?
ahead. Yeah, you're
Am I still
back. Yeah,
choppy?
just sometimes
Okay,
cutting a little bit, but we can hear you.
awesome. Please bear with me. I know we have very bad internet. We're still away from home in our camper right now. Um, anyways, I was just kind of shared this difference of relationship, that Moses knew the ways of Elohim, and the children of Israel knew the acts of Elohim. And yet you saw the people that saw the acts of Elohim often fell into disobedience. They often were fear based in their actions. But those who know the ways of Elohim, they can depend and trust and stake their confidence in his mercy and in his desire for life, for provision, and that's not in any way to trample on his holiness and his set apartness, because everything needs to be done in order. But anyways, I just wanted to tack that on to finish with what you were saying about the weightier matters, is because when we know the character of Elohim, when we know what his heart is, then when we come to those situations where the oxen is fallen in the ditch on the Sabbath, right? Then we know that the heart is not to keep a set of guidelines and let a being die before our eyes just because it's the Sabbath and it's a day that we shouldn't work on. But that doesn't in any way replace or remove the necessity to treat those things as holy and set apart and important. But it shows us how to set priorities in our life and in our faith walk. And just to jump back over here into First Samuel 21, and just a few thoughts that I had along the way as you were reading. Um, uh, Towards the end of this passage, it's interesting to me. And in Scripture, there's always sometimes two different ways of looking at the story, right? It can either be
Mm-hmm.
something to use as an example for how we should act, or it could be a lesson of how we should not act. And I can't help but to wonder, in this situation where David, starting in verse 11, and the
Mm-hmm.
fear that came over David because of Achish, the king of Gath, right? Um, of course, we know that uh, these were Philistines. These were of the nations that David had been fighting against. But it says here in verse 11, reading into verse 12, and the servants of Kish said unto him, is not David the king of the land? Did they not sting one another of him in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And so I wanted to look at something here, and I wanted to ask the question. I wanted to hear your opinion, Juan. Do you believe in this situation that this could have been a beautiful example of David being fearless, and maybe he perhaps gave into his fear in a circumstance that could have possibly been, a different situation? And I point at this because we see that oftentimes fear and fearfulness of the situations that could be lead us to act like fools. And then we see here, David acted like a fool. He started acting like a crazy person and doing all this stuff. And it says spittle came upon his beard. And when you look here, and it says, and Achish said unto his servants, Lo, ye see the man is mad. Wherefore then have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen, that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? And I do want to ask the question, and it's not to take away from how great of an example David is, but it makes me wonder what would have happened if David had gone in there and been fearless and just trusted in the Most High to continue to do what he regularly and consistently done throughout his life, preserving his life, protecting him. Could he have saved himself from, a little bit of the running? Could this king of Achish had, not like hurt him as David feared, and the situation gone differently? And of course, this is just kind of a speculatory thing, but what is the lesson to learn here is fear caused David to act the fool. And while the king put him out, and his life was preserved through that situation, just another way, one of the ways that the Most High kept him alive, I wonder if it would have gone any different. Was this meant to be? Was this what the Most High wanted David to do, to act like a fool? Or would he have been a testimony and been preserved and protected even if he had not acted like a fool? And that's just a question. And like I said, in Scripture, there's often examples to reflect and mimic, and there's also lessons to learn from. And I just have to ask that question. I wonder what your opinion is on that, Juan. What do you think? Did David do the right thing in this situation, dribbling and drooling all over himself and acting crazy?
Yeah, this is a funny part of the story, Jake. And when I was reading it this morning, I was thinking exactly and debating here at home exactly on what happened here. What I'm feeling now. I've even thought on this before. I think we see the compassion of Yahuwah in practice here. I do believe, as you, that maybe David in this case gave up and gave up to fear instead of being fearless, as you said, because he needed to know that Yahuwah was with him, and no matter that he went through to this place, and we think logically, most probably he went to God and to the Philistines because he knew that Shaul was persecuting him, and he was not going to go there. So logically thinking, that's why most probably David went to that place. But if he was directed to that place, he should be fearless and trust in Yahuwah. But he wasn't. But that's why I see that, the compassion of Yahuwah working here, because maybe this is exactly what he needed to do. Why I'm saying this, and this is the part that I didn't thought before hearing to you speaking about it, Jake, is that we saw what was the answer of this king, Akish. He was saying, I have enough crazy people here with me in my house, so why you are bringing one more here? So even David, without knowing what was one of the problems of Akish, that he was having too much crazy people around him, most probably, Yahuwah in his compassion, he was guiding him, even he was afraid to do these kind of things and acting like this, because that was the only way that Akish was going to get rid of David. And why I'm saying this, I have been seeing, and we have been speaking about a lot about the Ruach, the Spirit, lately. When we read so many stories in the scripture of prophets being led to do crazy stuff by the Ruach, that most probably, that was the way that Yahuwah was having compassion on David in order to save him of this situation. I think in any case, Jake, no matter that maybe with a fearless heart or with this so afraid heart, Yahuwah was going to save him in any of the situation.
Yeah.
That's my answer. This is what I think.
I agree. I think no matter what, David's days were numbered, and there was a plan for him, and it's kind of like the Most High will use any circumstance, even the situations we put ourselves into, to fulfill His will. And and the man who wrote the Psalms, he prepares me a banquet in the presence of my enemies. This very man that had the heart, that the Most High just loved, and who was provided for and protected in all these circumstances, even when he was afraid, even when he kind of, got into the situation with Akish and, started acting crazy, he was still provided for, and it was still made a way. What I kind of wanted to bring out of this, and why I was focusing on this and asking the question, is we can always ask that question: what would things have been like? What would things have been like if the people had repented, or if we had been more fearless in our situations? And if we trust in the Most High and we believe He's going to work out His perfect will in our life, and that everything that is happening in our life is ordained by Him and ordered by Him, as long as we're seeking first His kingdom, He's going to add all the things that we need. And in the same situation, I just I love to look at that and ask the what if question, because if I'm not
Let's see.
Just check something real quick.
Yeah. Just stop for 2 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. So is Gath? I'm trying to recall. Gath is the city in the Holy Land which Goliath, the Philistine, the champion, came. Correct? Is Gath is Goliath's hometown, right?
Yep.
Am I mistaken here, or let me just try to double check that. Okay, so just imagine he's going through this journey, running from Saul. We start the passage off reading about how he visits the priest, He's shown mercy and compassion by the Most High. He's shown an example of the weightier matters of the Torah, right? The provision, and then he's given the sword of Goliath. And where's the next place he goes?
Yeah.
The place of Goliath, right? And I wish sometimes the text would be like, behold, David arrived at the city of the big giant whose sword he was carrying. Like like it kind of
Was the sword
broke
of
down.
Goliath, you know?
Exactly. This guy rolls into town where the biggest, baddest giant around had lived, and he was probably well known, right? And David rolls up and he has the guy's sword. Imagine how big Goliath's sword is, and just envision
Yeah.
this scene of him rolling up, and then and then he probably was so scary to these Philistines, these people. And then what does he do? He goes into dribbly drill state, right? uh, you know, he,
Yeah.
you know, imagine a circumstance where he was probably putting the fear of Elohim in some people. Like, they were probably, on the cusp of like, whoa, like, what's he want to do here? Why is he showing up here? He took out of our mighty man, and he's rolling up with his sword now. He's going to teach us who's boss. And then, of course, this was a circumstance that they probably, looked down on. It was a circumstance where, this is the mighty warrior of Elohim, and he's dribbling and drooling all over himself. It kind of, and I understand it allowed the avenue of him to get out of there, but I just love to play the picture out of my mind of him walking into Goliath's hometown with his sword, and then what he does is he starts just going nutso, So
That's a
moving
funny
on.
picture, by the way, Jake. It's a funny picture to see David acting like this, and also all this situation. But at the same time, it's also it's speaking to us, and we read this all of the time in the book of Psalms. David was, from an emotional point of view, was up and down all the time. So in this case, we see this mighty man that after the heart of Yahuwah being afraid. This is something that we need to understand, that we are going through the same situations, that we can be afraid, but at the same time, we need to trust in him. He will save us even in the circumstances we are going through. Maybe we'll act crazy like David time to time, but even if we trust in Yahuwah,
Yeah,
he's gonna save us.
exactly. And that's really what I love about reading the scriptures and seeing examples like this is, the men that we look up to, the patriarchs, the Davids, the Elijahs, they struggled. They didn't do everything perfect, but they were still
Yeah.
provided for. And I think that's kind of the gist that I'm trying to hone in on this point is, in our life, in my life, in your lives, you know, even though we don't burst into the city and stay brave, even though we know the Most High is with us,
Yeah.
there's still things that we could learn and grow in. And because there were still areas that mighty men like David, they were still afraid. They still dealt with the very things that we deal with today. And that's why the scriptures are for our training, our correction, our
Yeah.
understanding of righteousness, to understand the weightier matters of the Torah. And moving on to the next chapter here, there's a pretty significant thing that I wanted to point out, that I wanted to encourage other people, because it's something that I've dealt with in my life, and it's standing up for the right thing despite the authority that's been placed over you, commanding you to do the opposite, right? And so, what is the situation here that we read in chapter 22? And it talks about how Saul brought forth the priests that gave David the sword, right? And let me scroll down here, and it says here, starting in verse 15, did I begin to inquire? Let me start a little earlier. verse 13. And Saul said unto the priest who gave David the sword and the bread, Why have you conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me to lie and wait as at this day? Then Abimelech answered the king and said, Who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at his bidding, and is honorable in thy house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me, let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. So right off the bat, this guy's hands are clean. He wasn't trying to betray his king, and he was also not doing anything wrong helping David. But verse 16, and the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, because they knew when he fled and did not show it to me. But, this is what I want to point out here, but the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And wow, just if I could take a minute to just like really highlight that for you guys, because it's highlighted for me, and I know that I've dealt with this in my life, where men of authority, men who are above me and have command me, or are my leadership or whatever, when I know something is not according to the righteousness of the Most High, when I know it's against the Most High's will, when I know it's wrong, when I know it's breaking Torah, it is such a important thing to stand on what you know is right, to hold to your convictions so that the blood's not on your hand. And that's what happened with the servants of Saul here that refused to slay the priests. That the blood wasn't on them anymore. They could have gone through with it, but you know what? They probably made Saul all the more angry. And I'm sure there was some talking to and probably some type of punishments or what. We don't know exactly. But listen, in our lives, there are consistently things where people in roles that are in authority above us, whether it's our boss, whether it's whoever, ask us or put us in a situation where we have to choose. And of course, a twisted version of the scripture that says render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, and respect your elders, would say even in the wrong do what they ask. But no, I would argue against that point. I would say yes, respect those who are put in authority above you, just like Daniel the prophet, right? He was put in a situation very similar where he was told, you must stop praying 3 times a day to Elohim, right? When he would sit down and he would do his prayers. And he stood on his convictions in the face of the authority that was speaking to him, commanding him to cut off that communication, right? And in the same way, I want to encourage people watching this, and I'm encouraging myself, to stand up to those situations and trust that the Most High has your back, and to trust that his justice will be done, and that you will be protected, and that his will be played out in your life, even though the going gets tough, even though you're staring face to face with the mad king who's been throwing spears at David, who's been trying to like chase him across the earth. And and instead of just giving in, they refused to put to death the priests of the Most High. And there's situations like decisions about what you do with your body that people in authority are telling you you must do this, or situations where you are told to work on the Sabbath. Listen, I guarantee you, you start standing up in those situations, the Most High is going to bless you. And I just wanted to bring that out because it stood out to me as a very significant moment in the story, um, as when they stood up and did not. But and then we have the opposite, right? We have Mr. Doug, the Edomite, who turned and fell upon the priest and slew on that day 65 people who wear the linen ephod. And you know, the Edomites come from the lineage of Esau. And you know, it's a rabbinical opinion that I've heard, and of course it's, you know, up for debate, of course, but it's the opinion that Esau represents, or the Edomites who his lineage comes from, Esau possibly represents one of the most wicked men in our Tanakh, in our Old Testament scriptures. And this is in the face of characters like Pharaoh, who slayed the children, Nimrod, who rebelled against the Most High and tried to put his kingdom up in the sky. This is in the face of you know, the wizard of Egypt. This is in the face of Balaam, the false prophet, who came to put a stumbling block of Israel. And why is this opinion about Esau that he is the most wicked man, and why am I tying this to this Doug character? Is the opinion that Esau is the most wicked man is because of the fact that he was the son of Isaac. He had righteousness presented before him, and he purposely chose wickedness. And wickedness is being given the choice of right and wrong and willfully turning your back on it, turning your opportunity of practicing the good and choosing the opposite. And we do wickedness in our lives, or we're tempted to do wickedness in our lives for all variety of reasons, whether it's personal gain, whether it's comfort, whether it's you know, you don't want to, you know, cause a bump in the road. You don't want conflict with your boss. You don't want conflict with your elder who's putting you in this situation to choose from right and wrong. Whether it's a whole variety of reasons, just apply it to your life, apply it to your situation. In all the little areas that you justify practicing sin, knowing that there's a right path, that's the quality that we have in the Edomites, in Esau, that we see that he had the choice. He had the choice between good and the righteous and the right and the evil. And what we saw, like with, at least in Esau's case, is, for example, you know, his parents told him, don't go and marry the Canaanites, don't go and marry the women of the nations. And you know what he did? He did the opposite of what they wanted. He went and mixed with these heathen nations. He went and combined the pagan with the holy. And you know, and this is not just, you know, for, you know, Esau, but we see a great example of one of his descendants carrying on the sinful course of his father's lineage, which was, he had this opportunity to choose to stand with the other servants, because it says that Doug was, you know, one of the you know, another head of the servants of Saul.
Yeah.
I know it's Doeg, but I love to call him Doug because it's close enough, and it could Doeg, Doug.
Much better.
But he saw all of these servants stand up, and he, possibly for personal gain, he saw his window of opportunity. And if anything, it reminds me of the cutthroat business nature of our world today. Is am I breaking up here, or am I still? I saw I was frozen.
No,
on
we
screen.
just
Can you
was
still
a
hear me all right, Juan?
little second, but we can hear you well. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Okay. And it reminds me of our cutthroat business environment of people who try to climb the ranks, and in the world, it's almost a common practice to just be cutthroat and to put others down, to build yourself up, and to tattle on your neighbor just to get your boss to promote you.
That's true.
And just looking at this, we see how he looked at all these other servants who were ticking off the king royally. Let's just say he was probably shaking in his boots with anger. And he saw this window of opportunity, and he committed wickedness because he wanted gain. He wanted personal rise in the ranks. He wanted to be the number 2 guy of King Saul. And that's exactly how Satan gets us. That's exactly how he gets us to just give up on our morals, give up on our convictions, because he gives us this tempting carrot and tries to reel us in. And just like we talked about, the scriptures are for training and correction and examples. Don't follow these examples of the people that don't stand up for the convictions, that that give in to the worldly kingdom, to themselves up and to maybe gain monetary gain. Stand on your trust of the Most High. And man, just so amazing though that the Most High, even though those priests were slaughtered, that it says that Abiathar, one of the sons, escaped, and that there was a remnant preserved despite the evil and the great wickedness that was done. And that's kind of a consolation to understand that despite the workings of evil people, despite the desires of the wicked to thwart the plans of the Most High, there will always be a way. And whether that way is through you, whether that way is through the next person that's raised up, whether it's, the remnant that's preserved that slipped out unawares while the wicked was done, there will always be a way. And that's what reminded me at the end of this passage about Abiathar escaping and going to the very servant of the Most High, who was the king that was put in place by the Most High, and ended up being his protection, and Abiathar being a very amazing, potent, strong priest, in the story as we read going through. How amazing that despite the evil that's done, that there's always a way that the Most High will, preserve. And it reminds me of Jezebel and how she slaughtered all those priests. But guess what? It said that there was 7,000, correct, that didn't bow the knee to Baal, and and the school of prophets that was hiding out in caves, right? How amazing. And even today, right? Even today, let's just remind ourselves that in the opportunity to choose righteousness and wickedness, and in the opportunity to choose the hard route, even though it means standing on the word, and choosing the easy route, which means our comfort.
See if Jake's back. Just wait
or
a few
our
seconds.
Respect in our community, right? Anyways, I was saying.
Now we hear you, but yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. I was just saying, even today, when we have all these opportunities and these moments where we can choose the hard route or the easy route between our job or our comforts or our respect and our prestige, let's be like these servants that stood up in that situation and refused to give in.
Yeah, and actually, Jake, one thing that caught my attention here is that for me this is a foreshadow as well. Foreshadow of things to come. We know that we are in a kind of tribulation, and we know that great tribulation is coming ahead. Most probably, we're very soon to that, very close to that. is that persecution is coming from the world. Persecution is coming from the system of the world in the same way that we see here. It's not coming from servants of Yahuwah against servants of Yahuwah, as you were highlighting here in the verse 17, but it's coming directly from the world. And one thing I think one thing is important also to highlight that what happened in this story was somehow something that Yahuwah said that will happen. And you just mentioned something, Jake, that is so important because Yahuwah will fulfill His word in any way, no matter that it's going through, in this case, through the system of the world, because He's in control always. And what I'm talking about, there was a curse against the house of Eli. And let's go just quickly to where we find this information. Is in the chapter 2 of the same book, and we were studying this in the first portion of the book of Samuel, and it is written in the verse 31 and 32. And that's the amazing thing, as you said, Jake, is that Yahuwah will protect His own ones, the ones that are being obedient. But if there is a curse, and Yahuwah is also saying that He will do something, He will find ways to do it, and in this case, some of it was happening here. So it says in the verse 31 to 32, and that's amazing thing, because it was the first encounter between Elohim, Yahuwah, and Samuel. He was a kid back then, and in the next one, and this was the curse against the house of Eli. It says, "See, the days are coming that I shall cut off your arm, the arm of your father's house." It was the curse against the house of Eli. "So that an old man shall not be found in your house, and you shall see an enemy in my dwelling place, despite all the good which Elohim does for Israel, and there shall not be an old man in your house forever." And if we jump to the chapter 3, this is exactly when Yahuwah was speaking to Samuel, in verse 11 to 14. Yahuwah said to Samuel, Shemuel in Hebrew, "See, I'm doing a matter in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hears it shall tingle. In that day I shall confirm against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from beginning to end. For I have declared to him that I am judging his house forever, for the crookedness which he knows, because his sons cursed Elohim and he did not rebuke them. And therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the crookedness of the house of Eli shall never be atoned for by slaughter and grain offering." So what's the point here? That this is really interesting, because when we go to the chapter 22, and we see in the verse 11, so Saul was talking about Ahimelech, and he said, "Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were enough, and they all came to the sovereign." And as you were mentioning, Jake, the only one that escaped from that situation was Eviatar. So when we review some genealogies, we see this amazing information. Let's go very quickly to the book of First Chronicles, chapter 24. Verse 3 and 6, and this is an important and amazing book, because it's talking about the priestly rotation. And it says in the verse 3, "And David with Zadok of the sons of Elazar, and Ahimelech of the sons of Itamar, divided them according to their offices in their service." So we see here Ahimelech was coming from the house of Itamar, and Zadok was coming from the house of Elazar. And if we go down, to the verse 6, it says, "And the scribe Shemaiah, son of Netanel, one of the Levites, wrote them down before the sovereign and the rulers, and Zadok the priest, and Ahimelech the son of Eviatar, and the heads of the fathers' houses and the priests of the Levites, one of the father's house taken for Elazar, and one for Itamar." So it looks like, the Ahimelech that was speaking about in this chapter 24 of the book of First Chronicles is a different Ahimelech, is the son of Eviatar. And Eviatar was the son of Ahimelech. And all of them were coming from the house of Eli, and all of them were coming from the house of Itamar. And we saw that there was the curse against the house of Eli. The two sons died, and it is written. We just read in the chapter 2 that the entire house was going to be dismissed, and they were going to serve the Yahuwah Elohim. So we see part of the curse happening in this chapter 22, the curse against the house of Eli. And it's not only that. When we go to the book of First King, we see what's happening with Eviatar. And this is in the chapter 2. And this is the King Solomon, Shlomo in Hebrew, speaking to Eviatar in the chapter 26 to 27, saying the following. Then the sovereign said to Eviatar the priest, go to Anatoth, to your own fields, for you deserve death. But I do not put you to death at this time, because you did bear the ark of the Master Yahuwah before my father David, and because you were afflicted in all my father was afflicted in. So Shlomo dismissed Eviatar from being priest to Yahuwah to fill the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke concerning the house of Eli at Shiloh. So, you're connecting all these dots. It's so interesting to see how Yahuwah, if he said that he is going to do something, he does it. No matter the way he will do it, he will do it. So that's why I want to highlight what you said, Jay, because it's totally aligned to what I was sharing before about compassion. It's totally aligned about love, because we are commanded to love Yahuwah first, but also we are commanded to love our neighbor. And what you said about we need to analyze the situations we're going through, because it's through our life experiences that we are going to be able to put into practice the Torah of Yahuwah and the way of righteousness of Yahuwah. And that's why no matter who is saying something, no matter it's something that is maybe in a different position, higher than us, that is pushing us, in the case as Shaul was pushing the servants to kill the priest, we need to, as you said, we need to analyze always, and we need to walk the way, walk the talk, and walk the way of righteousness of Yahuwah. Because what would end up happening is that no matter that it was the will of Yahuwah, most probably this to happen because of the curse that was coming against the house of Eli. These guys, the servants of Shaul, were going to commit wickedness anyways. They were not allowed to do that. But Yahuwah orchestrated everything, that somebody from the house of Esau was going to commit this thing, because it was part of the curse. So, for all of us that were walking in this way, what you said, Jake, is so important. We need to be compassionate. We need to walk in love, but most importantly, to Yahuwah first. What it means that we need to keep his commandment all the time. And if Yahuwah is going to do something, he will find the ways to do it, keeping us in holiness, in set apartness to his commandment and his covenant. And this is something we need to keep always in mind. We are being called to live a different type of life, to live the life of the kingdom of Yahuwah, and we need to push forward to do it at all times. That's one of the most important things I'm taking from this passage, and thank you for bringing this up, because I think in this time that we are living is so important that we should keep that holiness. And actually, in the previous chapter we were talking about that. Even though that David was not part of the priest, and the priests were the only one allowed to eat the bread, and I think you mentioned this as well, Jake, is that that doesn't mean that they were acting in compassion and giving him the bread because he was going in through a situation. He needed to fulfill certain conditions. He needed to be set apart. And, I was taking a look in a few passages in the book of Thessalonians. And Paul was talking about this. What's the desire of Yahuwah? What's the desire of Elohim? Our kodeshah in Hebrew, our set apartness. And this is exactly connected. All the dots is exactly what we are being called out to do. Is to work is to walk and to live in holiness, in set apartness, to live in kodeshah. And there is a beautiful passage, that is being mentioned, and I would like to share it. It's in the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu in Hebrew. That somehow is connecting all these dots in the chapter 35. It's only 10 verses. Let's read it completely. It's talking about, second Exodus. It's talking about us. It's talking about Israel. And what should be our mindset. So let's read it together, starting in verse 1. It says, "Let the wilderness and the dry place be glad for them, and let the desert rejoice and blossom as the rose. It blossoms much and rejoices, even with joy and singing. The stream of Lebanon shall be given to it, the excellence of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the stream of Yahuwah, the excellency of our Elohim. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the weak knees." Talking about compassion. "Say to those with anxious heart, be strong, do not fear." And we're just talking about this about David, It's amazing. "See, your Elohim comes with vengeance, with the recompense of Elohim. He's coming to save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf be opened. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb sing. Because waters shall burst forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. And the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water in the home of jackals, where each lay grass with reeds and rushes. And there shall be a highway and a way, and it shall be called the way of Kodeshah, the way of set apartness. The unclean does not pass over it, but it is for those who walk the way, and no fools wander in it. No lions is there, nor any ravenous beast go up on it. It is not thunder, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransom of Yahuwah shall return and enter Zion, with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away." So, the way of Yahuwah is the way of Kodeshah, the way of set apartness. That's why the desire in the heart of Yahuwah is our holiness, our set apartness. And that's why, what you said, Jake, complemented to what we were seeing in the chapter 21, what we see in the chapter 22, is exactly what should be our behavior. To go to Yahuwah first, to keep his commandment at all time, to trust in Yahuwah, to be obedient. No matter who is pushing to do something different, no matter who is trying to convince us to do something different, we need to remember that we are walking in this way of Kodeshah, or set apartness. And it is written that nothing unclean will enter the New Jerusalem. So we are actually in this time learning that we need to live this way. We need to experience in our own day-to-day this living in this way, learning to put the commandment into practice, to be obedient to Yahuwah. But interesting to see this connection, how this course is coming to reality, and Yahuwah orchestrated everything so for his servant not to commit sin, but he put somebody else to fulfill his word.
Wow. Yeah, it just keeps resounding in my head over and over. Our Elohim is holy. He must be treated with awe and respect, and that's what has been lost in our communities over the past 1,500, 700, 1,700 years, right? Is the priests in Ezekiel 20:22. Ezekiel 22 says they stop showing the difference between the clean and the unclean, and the profane, and that's what we have to recognize and restore to our walks, is holiness and righteousness, because in that is the protection of the Most High. In that is where the very provision that we see for David, where even though it wasn't lawful for him to eat of the showbread, because he participated in a way that was very honoring and making sure he was treating everything as holy and the most set apart way he could at the time, which was they just abstained from going into their women for 3 days, right? Which is a whole different topic to look into.
Yeah.
I don't even know, would love to study that out, but just like, for example, like in our walk, I think we've been honed in as a Christian community that it is okay to approach our Elohim in a filthy, unclean state. But I think we're in error there. I think, yes, there is always the opportunity for repentance and returning the Most High, no matter what state you're in. Stop right now and turn around, right? But when it comes to depending on his protection, depending on his provision, depending on him to do those above and beyond things for us, if we treat him like the holy Elohim he is, he's faithful and true to come through for us, right? Because when we give him the honor and respect and obedience that he requires as the bare minimum for us, right?
Yeah.
Then that's when you see him come through on his promises. And it's all back to Deuteronomy 28, right? If what I'm saying to you, is poking you in the eye and you feel like you're being offended because I'm saying be holier, I'm talking to myself too, don't worry. I'm not just throwing this out on people. It's Deuteronomy 28, guys. It's just literally it playing out in the life of David as we read through it. Obey my commandments. I will be your rear protection, and I will be your provision, and I will be your needs met, and your deliverance in the presence of your enemies. And I think it's all tied to, just like you said, we can't pick up one thing and leave the others. It's all together. We have to have the way of the Most High. We have to have the weightier matters of the Most High prioritized. We have to have the reverence for the Most High. We have to have the the humility in pursuing His will for our life, and it's all of it together. It's none left behind. It's the love. It's the obedience. It's the spirit. It's the truth. It's the everything. And without one of them, you're missing something. And anyways.
Let's go, Jake. I would like to finish my comment today, and you need to tell us what you have been doing. We are just waiting for you to tell us where you are and so on. But just to finish my comment of the portion today is just to take a look in a beautiful picture, and this is in the chapter 22, verse 2, and is the title of the portion today. It says, "And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone bitter in being gathered to David. So he became head over them. And there were about 400 men with him." So now, he was in distress, he was being persecuted. And even in that situation, people that was going through a similar situation, that was in distress, was bitter in their heart, they were coming and getting closer to David in order to find refuge. And this is an amazing picture because, Mashiach, he said these words in the chapter 11 of the book of Matthew, verse 28, 30th. "Come to me, all you who labored and are burdened, and I shall give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your beings. For my yoke is gentle and my burden is light." So, we see here in the life of David, even in the situation that he was persecuted, and we know that our Messiah was persecuted as well by the religious people of his time. He was in a similar situation that David. Yeah. And here we see the amazing foreshadow of David, foreshadow of Messiah, that in Messiah we will find, if we are bitter in being, if we are going through distress, in him is where we will find peace and rest for our soul. And he complemented the same, as it is written in the book of John, chapter 6, verse 37 to 40. And what we will find in him is exactly this. "All that the Father gives me shall come to me, and the one who comes to me I shall by no means cast out, because I have come down out of the heaven not to do my own desire." We were talking about the food at the beginning. What is our food? Is to do the desire of Elohim, but the desire of him who sent me. This is the desire of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me I should not lose of it, but should raise it in the last day. And this is the desire of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him should possess everlasting life and shall raise him up in the last days. So in the same way that people were getting closer to David, that they were going through distress and bitterness of life, we can go closer to Mashiach, to Yahushua. And what's going to be the last recompense if we are obedient to the word of Yahuwah is our expectation, our hope, is the everlasting life in his kingdom that is soon is going to be in place here in this world, removing all unrighteousness, removing all sin. And finally, we will see the Kodeshah, the set apartness, and the righteousness of the kingdom of Yahuwah filling the entire earth. So this is what I had to share today, Jake. I would like to hear from you. Tell us what you have been doing and where you are.
Yeah, it's we Sierra and my children, Aaliyah and Zena, have been on kind of like a month and a half long vision quest, is I guess all I could call it. Is we've been traveling. We've been in Missouri. We went down to Texas for some time. We're back in Missouri now. We were actually planning to be home several days ago, and just kind of were led to show up to another event up here. And overall, we've just been really, really seeking to hear the voice of the Father and to be in tune with what His desire for our lives are. Just some really exciting things that we see are starting to blossom out of our travels. One of which is we're really excited to be getting more involved with Virtual House Church. We have some really cool ideas with working with Juan Carlos and Sheila, and we have been talking with various musicians along the way to bring worship music to Virtual House Church. I got in contact, and my buddy Adam's gonna allow us to use his Bible trivia. Well, it's a like a trivia thing that we're going to be able to do here on Virtual House Church. So stay tuned for some of those things. We're really excited. We're going to be trying to bring some of that to Virtual House Church to have some really fun things to do for families and have some good worship music, because I know now that we're streaming over here on the Rob Skiba channel that we got to be careful with copyright strikes. And so just to I love you've been playing some of my songs, Juan, but sometimes you just need real worship music. I know so we're excited to we've been talking with some great people to help bring that to the table. But that's just in the area of like Virtual House Church. But more personally, we've just really been trying to seek after the voice of the Most High. Really looking at ourselves inwardly, me personally looking at kind of the things that I see that I've fallen short in over the past year, 6-7 months, low points in my life, and why I might have been able to fall into those ruts, recognizing some very important points that I'd love to share with you guys, because over the years, the first thing I started doing back when I worked with Now You See TV was I started hosting Virtual House Church with Rob, and so you guys, for if you've been long termers and you've been sticking out and watching Virtual House Church all through these years, you are really an extension of family, because you have been there so long, and you've seen me grow in my walk and studying the scriptures, and and some things I've realized, just being transparent, is I realized that fellowship and having people around you to encourage you, to support you, to pray for you, to love on you, to do life with, to just have friends is so important. And we were in a period of our life after Rob passed away, and another one of our friends passed away last year. We had a baby coming, and we were very in a kind of a very low point. Had a lot of lot of attacks from the enemy to just destroy my family, and I realized that's one of the doors, is when we don't have those people, when we're at our bad point, or when we're at our weakest, to lean on. And I want to encourage anybody that, if you feel maybe as I've described how I felt, find that fellowship, find people to get around that can just sow into your life. And if you don't know how to ask for, somebody to love on you, you just take the initiative and love on someone else, and you'll be surprised.
Let's see, he's
It
coming
opens
back.
doors, and we are get filled up with a love from the Father as we pour out. As we love others, we can be filled up. And so, that would be my one thing that I'm learning from this vision quest we've been on. We're on our way home soon. But fellowship, having people around you locally, and just having people to pray with you and encourage you, and just have joy in life with, and to celebrate this gift that the Most High has given us. That, it's, all the dark stuff in the world, you can get very hyper focused. And I know I get hyper focused on different things sometimes, um and sometimes we're our own worst enemy. That's what I am. I'm my own worst enemy. I've I've learned over the years that to stop looking outward at people and what they're doing to me, and, oh, they're the bad guy. I've realized that I need to look more this way, right? I'm the one who's limiting myself from a closer walk, and I just need to challenge those areas that I put in front of myself that keep me from growing closer. And so, just, recognizing that, and just being transparent has helped me, and I'm being transparent with you guys. Is that's, some of the things that we've been trying to figure out, is just to hear the voice of the Most High, is so important in these days, to hear him speak, to hear exactly what he wants, because we can know the acts of Yah, as I was sharing, that I learned the other day from a brother named Eddie. We can learn the acts of Yah, and we can try to be obedient to his word, but we need to know the ways of Yah, because knowing his character, knowing his promises, and who he says he is, and then standing on those promises, is often how we can start to apply it in a deeper way in our life. And so, anyways, long story short, we're super excited about some of the amazing things that the Most High has been working on me and my family's life. We're excited that the future that Virtual House Church, I feel that the Most High really wants to grow Virtual House Church, and really wants to just keep encouraging people, as we've been doing, and as Juan Carlos has been doing. And we're just want to, really start growing a greater team of people to all build up the kingdom of the Most High. And we're just excited for, any role that, the Most High puts us in, to that end. And so, that's pretty much just the main gist of it. We're homesick now, ready to be home, but we've been gone, like I said, for over a month, traveling in our RV. That's why I've not been able to join. I'm so grateful for men like Juan Carlos, who just are so full of wisdom and the word, and man, I felt that way back in 2017 when you were jumping on. I remember back then I was like, man, we got to get Juan Carlos on more regularly, and it's so amazing to see full circle, Juan, like, where we're at now, right? And just really excited for, whatever the Most High has. And I think my final little thing I'll say is, I realize the most important thing in our lives is just being willing to say yes, whatever it looks like. and to be sensitive, that's the place that I want to come to, and I've been really searching and trying to get to at this time, is to just be able to say yes whenever he does speak, if he does speak to me, and speak to you guys. I hope you can come to the place of just being able to say yes, because as the world gets crazy, we have the instruction manual, we have the foundation, but there's going to come a time where we need to hear his voice, when we need to hear his character and his way to navigate in a day-to-day way. And anyways, that's all that I had to share. But I love you guys, and it's great to be back on.
Thank you so much, Jake. And time to time we need this time apart. Even Messiah was doing it. He was departing from people and from the disciple because he needed to hear it and to be close to Elohim. So we pray for you, brother, for your family. It's always a blessing to have you here. And we love your songs, by the way. Actually, last week we were playing your last song, and everybody, including myself, are enjoying it. So, you need to keep producing this music, because I think it's a blessing to all of us, for all the family out there. And I think you put it right in the words. I always telling this to most of the time. More than a community, we are family, and we are the family of Elohim. And the times that are coming ahead, we will need the family. As we were reading just in this portion, the servants of Yahuwah that were following the commandments didn't raise their hands against the priests. So where we will find support in this time and the times ahead, for sure, first is coming from Elohim, from Yahuwah. But he's doing it through his servants, through his sons. And that's why, if we have the chance, for any of you that have the chance to have a local and face-to-face fellowship, and to get in touch with people, like-minded people that have the same belief like you, try to do it. If you don't have the chance, we need to trust in Yahuwah. Yahuwah is with us, and he will guide us as he has been doing it throughout all these years. He's the one orchestrating things. And you mentioned it, Jake, none of us believed back in 2017 that we were being in this place today, continuing with Virtual House Church. But, Yah knows how to orchestrate things, and why we are going through situations and decisions. And I think, as you mentioned, and it's just to a recall of what we have been learning in this book of Samuel. We need to be obedient, and we need to be willing to say yes. In the same way that Samuel was saying, "Here I am, Yahuwah, your servant is hearing." This is exactly what should be our attitude, and what a better way to finish this Virtual House Church, So, Jake, I hope you are going to have a blessing finish of your trip. You are going to get home as soon as possible. And especially that you are going to hear from Yahuwah what he is wanted for you in the coming days. And just to invite everybody else to join us next week. We'll continue doing Virtual House Church. Keep in mind, we are going to, and actually let me put it here in the screen, if I can. We're going to study, just let me mention this, it's going to be the chapter 23 and the chapter 24 of Samuel. So do your homework, try to read the portion before so you can participate in the chat, just giving us your insights of what you are to study in this next portion next week. So, we're going to end this Virtual House Church with one of your songs, Jake. So this has been a blessing, and this is part of the Virtual House Church for a while already. So it's the Aaronic blessing. Until next week, just to say Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of the family. And I hope to see you, all of you, next week here in Virtual House Church. So, Jake, thank you, brother. Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to all of you.
Shabbat shalom.
יברכך יחוה וישמרך יאר יחוה פניו
bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti